Hello there, this is Robin Gamble. Welcome to the Scholar Warrior podcast. Now, the idea of the Scholar Warrior has been around for thousands of years across many great cultures. And the concept is this, that one of the highest achievements in society is to become skilled in the martial arts while also pursuing the scholarly pursuits of painting, poetry, music, philosophy, and more. So it's here that I interview martial artists as well as artists in various fields, so that you, the listener, can gain a peek into their techniques, skills, and strategies for success. And so that you, the listener, may gather these gems and apply them on your own path to self-mastery and excellence. Enjoy. Okay, so today I am talking to Iain Abernethy, who has been involved in the martial arts since childhood, and he holds the rank of sixth Dan with the British Combat Association, the English Karate Federation, and the British Karate Association. Now, he regularly writes for the UK's leading martial arts magazines, and he's a member of the Combat Hall of Fame. He's one of the UK's leading exponents of applied karate, and Iain has written a number of critically acclaimed books on the practical application of traditional martial arts, and is well known for his work on the pragmatic use of the techniques and concepts recorded in the traditional kata. So Iain's seminars and books, DVDs and articles have proved to be very popular with those who wish to practice their arts as the more pragmatic systems they were originally intended to be. I'm a big fan of his style, as I've already told him, of his content, of his presentation, and of his approach to his work. So I welcome Iain to the Scholar Warrior podcast. Welcome, Iain.
Well, thank you. Very glad to be here.
Okay, great. So I think the best place to start is at the beginning, which tends to be the best place to start generally. So how did you start out in martial arts, Iain?
Taking it way back, right back, the first time I can remember showing an interest in it was my dad used to go to the library every Saturday morning, come back with some books for him and us to read, you see. And my dad got me one tongue-in-cheek one, which was How to Be a Spy, which he thought, Iain will enjoy this. Now, in this How to Be a Spy book, there was a martial arts section, So I remember looking at that and then thinking this was interesting. And then I can remember my dad taking all the covers off the sofa, the settee, putting them down on the ground to make mats. And then my dad had done a little bit of wrestling, Cumberland and Westmoreland wrestling when he was a younger man. So my dad showing me some wrestling style throws and takedowns and stuff, you see. So playing with my dad is the earliest recollection. And then when I got into it properly, I was probably about 11 years old. And I decided, this martial arts thing appeals. I'd seen couple of Bruce Lee movies and things. I thought, I want to learn this. So again, I went down to the library myself. I got a load of books out on martial arts, and every book on martial arts tells you that you can't learn martial arts from a book. Right. So, quite a shy kid, didn't like the idea of going to a class. That was a bit nerve-wracking for me. But nevertheless, I thought if I want to be good at this, I'm going to have to do it. So I went along with a few friends of mine to my first ever class and didn't like the first class, got punched, got dropped, got knocked to the floor, first class, found it incredibly confusing, didn't enjoy it at all. Came out, my mum said to me, did you enjoy that? Because she's, getting worried that Iain just doesn't do anything. He's got no interests at all. So she said, did you enjoy it? No, I didn't. So she's disappointed. And well, maybe go next week and see what it's like. Well, I went back the next week.
You'd been down to the karate class, you got a hiding, and then you decided to go back. Is that right?
Yeah, I tell you, and all that was, and this is the instructor at that time. But the reason I remember getting the dropping was he was preparing the current crop of white belts for grading the next week. So they've obviously got a certain level of skill with it now. They've got the grips with it, and I'm brand new. Yeah. So the black belt that was taking my particular bit said to everybody that when we the turn round and they do the ki thing, the shouting thing. Yeah. And he said, you're not doing it right. He goes, let me show you. So he picks the biggest white belt and he says, go on, punch me as hard as you can. So as he punches him in the stomach, he kind of ki's and says, see, that's it. He said, I'm making myself stronger than him just because I'm shouting. He said, I'm tensing the muscles up. I can take a shot. He said, that's one of the reasons that we do that. He said, get with the partner and try it. So I'm hitting this guy and he's screaming and it's, this is great. And then, of course, he hits me and I, this little kind of timid whimper, just again hits the solar plexus, wind's knocked out of me, bent down. Yeah. The instructor comes over, and the guys, I'm so sorry, because I'm 11 years old, I'm a kid, right?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, and the instructor goes, it's not your fault. He goes, it's his fault. He should have shouted better, So I thought, okay. Right. So I'm sure I want to go back here, but when I left, he said, look, I'm really sorry I couldn't spend a lot of time with you tonight. I needed to get these lot ready for their grading. Come back next week. I won't charge you for today's class. Come back next week, and I'll spend some time with you. So I felt there was an agreement in place, which, you know what I mean? So I didn't want to welch on the agreement, and I had to go back. So, and when I went back and trained, I thought, this is actually quite good fun. And I remember him correcting me on a reverse punch, and he said, yeah, that's it. And as soon as I knew, maybe I can do this, it was, I've got the right leg forwards and the right arm stuck out, so that's progress, so, and that's why I decided to go back.
Right, okay, so you were pretty lucky to get that second chance, huh? So just having that kind of verbal agreement kind of tied you in to keeping to your word and going back and giving it another try.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been up until that point. I'd got pretty obsessive with martial arts. I was watching anything I could find on it. I was reading anything I could find on it. So I think I was a little bit disappointed. Firstly, that I'd proven not to be instantly fantastic at it. So that's which that was the first kind of disappointment to my young mind. And the other one that this is something I want to be good at, and it looks like that avenue might be closing down to me. You see, but for every time I went back, I remember it distinctly for maybe a year. I was every morning. Sunday morning was the main class day. I would wake up in Sunday morning. I would iron my suit. I would get ready, and I'd have butterflies. And I'd be nervous, and it took a long time for that to go away. So it wasn't like I walked into the dojo on the first occasion and everything was great and enjoyable, and I loved it from that moment on. It was just I just kind of worked through all of that because I knew I wanted to be good at it. I started to enjoy the feeling of making progress.
I think that's. I think it's also useful for people that have not yet taken up martial arts to hear that as well, because they see someone like you, a sixth dan, and just presume that you probably just fell into it and were just kicking ass or whatever straight away, But I'm often surprised when, for example, I teach Tai Chi Chuan or Qigong, and someone immediately says after a first session, "Oh yeah, I'm not very good at that." How could you possibly know? You haven't really done it, Or like someone says, "Oh yeah, I can't do yoga. I'm not flexible," or something. Well, yoga makes you flexible.
I can't diet. I'm too fat.
Right. So. Was it something particular about karate that stimulated your interest first, or was it just karate was the highest quality thing that was around, so that's why you went into it?
Well, my original thought was, again, I'd read up on it quite a lot, and I'd looked at, I knew I had a couple of friends went to the karate club, and it was renowned for being it's a strong club in the area, strong reputation, known for producing good karateka. Right. So there was a couple of choices, but that was the main choice. But I originally wanted to do both karate and judo because I had this idea of I wanted to be able to. But my mum had said to me, "Look, there's only so many nights in the week, and you've got schoolwork and other things to do." You know what I mean? And my dad had to drive me. The nearest school was it was like a 40-minute round trip to get to it. So I was living in a rural area. So my dad was happy to do that, but said, okay, there's limits on how far we can go and what we can do. So, but like most people, I didn't really know. I just had this vague idea that karate looks good. And I know this club's got a good reputation, so I'll go and try it. But I could have, if the local club had been a jiu-jitsu club, I would probably have, if it'd been good when I'd gone there, it would have been jiu-jitsu. It wasn't that I made a considered choice. It was just, well, what's good locally, and that'll do for me, So I got lucky, really. I just went to, what was ultimately a very good school and very good instructors.
Right, I see. Yeah. So through your training, the practical application and kind of self-defense aspects seem to appeal to you more over like just the performance of kata or even like point sparring competitions. So why was that?
Well, I think, looking back, at the time I didn't realise this. I did compete. I went to every competition going because that's what our club did. Right. I didn't care whether I won or I lost. So that was obviously problematic. If you want to be good at something, you've got to want to be good at it, I did enjoy the movement of Kata. I did enjoy the way that it felt, so I did like the aesthetics of it. I used to compete in Kata competitions too. But the self-defense side of it, what it appealed to me is it's an honest measure of progress. I think that was the main thing. All the others seemed artificial. Somebody has decided this is the certain aesthetic we want from the kata. Well, that's arbitrary. It's man-made. It's artificial. Or somebody has decided this is a set of rules we're going to fight to. If they change the rules tomorrow, you're no longer skillful. You know what I mean? It's just, it's very arbitrary. But the two or more human beings interacting in that primal way, like the self-defense way, that's a very objective test of progress. So I think originally, I'd got into, like most kids do, you get into a fair few scrapes, and I remember thinking to myself, that was part of the reason I started. I need to be good at this. You know what I mean? I need to be able to defend myself properly. But I think it's just because it's a good measure. I think it's a realistic measure from which to gauge progress. It's an objective measure, datum to work from. So I think that's what it was that appealed originally. It felt real.
So yeah, does this stuff work when you really need to lean on it? That kind of approach.
That's right. You know what I mean? And it's well, exactly. And it doesn't matter what anyone. If some guy changes the rules or decide they want a slightly different aesthetic or something like that, well, those things change overnight just in the minds of men. But conflict doesn't. It just felt external to value judgments. It just felt more real from that perspective, you see. And I've always been like that. I mean, thinking I'm quite utilitarian that way. If someone shows me something and it works, I'm on it. I get it.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's and I can remember right back to things like at school. I'd get corrected for. Your grammar's not quite right when you've written this. And I thought, yeah, but the way I write it, it makes sense to me. The way you're asking me to write it, it seems contrived. It just seems like a dumb rule. Yeah. So I've always been like that. Is, if someone can show me do this because it has an active real world result, then I'm all on board. Yeah. If it's just do this because we've decided that's the way it should be done, it doesn't really appeal to me.
Yeah. Well, basically all English grammar makes no sense. So I can see how that wouldn't, really tickle your fancy. But
I'm just because the objective of language is communication. So if I'm communicating my point effectively, I understand what I'm saying, and the listener understands what I've said. Then to me, language is working. Now, if someone says no, you've split an infinitive there, what difference does that make? Do you know what I mean? Right. So it's that kind of thinking tends to run through, everything. So I know some people are kind of purists and like things done right, but again, there's right in terms of functional right, and there's right in sort of cultural and shared values right, and the two don't always align, I think.
So one thing that I think is quite interesting is you mentioned how this one-on-one interaction in a kind of self-defense environment is a true test, but how do you test it? How do you measure it? Do you know what I mean? Apart from like going on the streets and getting around.
Well, that's the flip side of it as well. You see, so at least if you're talking about like points competition, then you've got there's an arbitrary set of rules that agrees what's good, but from that position you've got an objective test. So self-defense is the other way around. There's a real problem here. You know what I mean? There's a real issue. But as you say, you don't have an objective test. You can't, and even if you did go out and look to fights, that's not the same as self-defense anyway. It's a difficult thing to test. So my thing was always, well, okay, I'm going to study as I've got a little bit of personal experience I can draw on myself, and then I also want to, read what everyone else has experienced this situation says and thinks, and what their experience has been, and then we're going to create drills and ways of training that match that scenarios. So we're going to like a soldier would do. We don't take a soldier and throw them into battle, going, you'll be fine, you'll learn. What they do is they recreate what they know from experience to be, realistically, this will prepare you for it. So we do the same kind of thing, you see. But it can, the trouble with it as well is unless you're very stringent with it, it can shift. People like to create their own kind of, if we make it like, if we shift the problem, then our solution works better. Right. Well, it shouldn't be that. It should be, well, the problem is what the problem is. We need to shift our solution if it's not working in the objective way. So what I did from day one is I sought out instructors who had real life experiences and had been there and done that would objectively tell me, yeah, that won't work, this will work. and then we'd create drills around those kind of scenarios and those bits of information. And I mean, it's enjoyable too. It just feels real. If you've done a self-defense drill and you've escaped, you think that's a real life, real world skill that's workable in the way that I think, well, I won a trophy there.
Right.
Well, it doesn't. And I'm not knocking it for others, by the way. I mean, I accept this is just Iain talking as Iain. For others, they would, the competition's all what they want to do, and I'm fully on board with that and fully respect it. But it was just the way my mind worked. It was that realism that I think I needed to ground my practice in for it to have value to me.
Right. Did I obviously I've watched a lot of interviews and in preparation for this. Am I right in saying that you were an engineer?
That's correct, yeah. I was part of an engineering team.
Right.
My colleagues would dispute I was ever an engineer.
Okay, that's very kind of them.
Yeah.
Do you think you gravitated towards that because of this type of thinking, or do you think the engineer kind of problem-solving kind of thinking influenced your karate?
The reason I took that job was because it would allow me to train. That was it. When I was 16 years old,
right.
It's time to leave school. There's a big local factory that has a great apprenticeship program, sends people to college, trains them up. So I thought, right, okay, I'll do that because it's convenient for training, it plays well, and the conditions are good. So that's why I chose that particular thing. It wasn't that I feel naturally drawn to engineering. It was the other way around. It was my karate's my thing.
Right.
And then this job will support that thing. But I don't think I wouldn't say that I think like an engineer too much. Because that's often like a very dry and logical thing, and fighting isn't. It's very emotional and very chaotic, and But in terms of that, okay, what we have a problem here, we need to solve get a solution that works for the problem. That's always been my way of thinking. Well, I think in martial arts, what we tend to see a lot of is I already have my solution. I need to reinvent the problem to fit the solution, which isn't how an engineer would think. It was
right.
If it's working, it's working. If it's not, it's not. So in that way, it's the same. But I don't think it was because I've got a natural engineering mind. It was just that's happened to be where I ended up working. You see.
Okay. So you mentioned seeking out experienced teachers, and it seems like one of those was a friend of yours, Jeff Thompson. So
yes, yeah.
I wondered for our listeners if you could describe Jeff and how he influenced you and your training.
Well, Jeff was obviously he was. Been a doorman on the streets of Coventry when Coventry was the most violent city for its size in Europe. So obviously I had a lot of real life experience. Jeff then wrote some books like in the 1990s, basically saying, look, the emperor's got no clothes. There's things in martial arts that we're doing that I can tell you objectively don't work. Now, prior to when Jeff became famous, if you like, and everybody was reading his articles and his books, one of my teachers, Doug James, he also had another student called Ian McCranagh. Well, Ian McCranagh used to work the doors with Doug. So there was that connection martially before there was that connection, between me and Jeff personally. So about the same time, I'm looking to write my first book as well. I'm thinking of doing it. And my instructor, Doug, had said, well, you should talk to Jeff because I know Jeff's writing books. And he, told me that, Jeff was this doorman and these skills. So that's kind of how that connection was made for me.
Right.
But yeah, lots of real world experience, was very objective. Again, was very, look, this is the problem as it really is. This is the solution as we need it to be. And I'd say my instructor organised a session with Jeff, one of Jeff's earliest seminars. Me and a few of my guys went along to it when we were training, and he was explaining things. This is it. This is where I need to be. This is the kind of karate or martial arts, self-defense that I want to be doing. I like the way that Jeff talked. I like the way that he mixed the philosophical and the practical. I like the realism of it and the honesty of it and the rawness of it. And at that time for me, it was this is what I want, So, and Jeff's been a good friend and a good mentor ever since.
Okay, so a big influence on you, and I the next question was, aside from karate, was there any other arts that you regularly trained in? So I guess there would have been that kind of reality-based martial arts. Anything else?
Well, see, the thing with for me, I mean, the karate and the reality-based were always one and the same. I drilled the karate in a reality-based way. But what I did quickly realise, if I took my gi off and just wore normal clothes, it was reality-based martial arts. If I put my gi on, it was karate.
Right.
So it was, it was my outfit that seemed to change what I was doing, at least to the people I was talking to anyway. And then from there, I've also trained with boxers, kickboxers. I did judo for a few years, just to kind of augment the karate. So I always consider myself a karateka first and foremost. And what the other arts have done, excuse me, I'm not really a practitioner of those arts. I wouldn't see it that way myself. But I've used training drills and elements of those to influence my karate, where I thought, things could be improved upon.
Right. So those other arts have kind of enriched your karate.
Yeah, so sometimes it would be techniques or the way that they trained or exercises or the way that they drilled. So it was one of these things that my judo instructor and me always used to joke about whenever I was introduced to anybody. I would always, hi, I'm Ian, I do karate and I'm here to improve my throwing and stuff. And Mike, my instructor, was go, when are you going to tell people you're a judoka? When are you going to tell people that you do judo? Because you're doing judo, But so it was a long-running joke between the two of us, you see. He would say, as soon as you're in these walls, forget all that karate stuff, you're a judoka, you're a judo player.
Right.
But to my mind, I never was. I was always a karateka looking to take elements of judo into the karate to help improve, my core art, you see.
Right. Okay. So diving into your art and what you're known for a little bit more, you're I suppose known as the applied Kata guy. So in at least in some respects.
Yeah, I'll take that.
Okay. So for our listeners, could you explain what? I've got 3 questions, which is convenient. What is Kata? How is it normally taught, and how do you teach it?
Yeah. They're great questions. That enables me to succinctly tell everybody what it is. So,
right.
So in terms of what is Kata, the definitions on this, different people will say different things, but this is what I see. Kata were single-person drills designed to encapsulate the methods of a given teacher or system. So they'd have loads of 2-person drills that work together. They take one half of that 2-person drill and they just do it in the air. You put enough of these sequences end to end and you've got a kata. So it's a way to help record drills in a solo template, and it's a way to give students a supplementary form of solo practice. So when they haven't got a partner, they can run through the kata. They've got a way to rehearse those movements on their own. So that's essentially what kata is. People often refer to it as things like shadow boxing and stuff, but it's not quite that. Because it's designed, it's not as free as that. It's designed to record specific techniques, ideas, principles, drill. But that's what it is. That's what I would say Kata is. It's a repository of knowledge and a supplementary form of solo practice. Typically, they were made by students as well. They weren't made by masters. So if we can use those terms. So a given master would teach his fighting skills, and then the student would create the kata for himself to enable him to kind of practice those things. And then he may teach that kata in turn to his own students to help pass on the information he'd received. So that's what they are. Okay. In terms of how most people teach them, we had this thing round about the 1930s, 1940s. Karate and most martial arts in Japan underwent something of a revolution, where they were deemed as being old-fashioned, out of date, archaic, violent, nothing that any decent human being would be interested in. So Kano, the founder of judo, had the bright idea of basically robbing what we were doing in the English education system and using sport as a means to, we'll develop character with it. It was like boxing, the noble art of self-defense. So he switches things around, and then it becomes more about character development and physical fitness. The karate guys tried to copy that. And so what they started doing was teaching karate in the university systems, where they didn't have a lot of time to get to depth with it. It was It was just learn it all quickly, and then get out in the big wide world and teach it. And it doesn't matter if you can apply it or not, because we don't care if you can apply it or not. We care about your character and your physical fitness and all that kind of stuff. So most people nowadays, when they teach that model where it's not well understood, and it's become nothing but fighting another karate guy from long range, kicking, punching and blocking, and that's it. And it doesn't work very well that way. It doesn't stand up to scrutiny. My view is they're trying to bash a square peg into a round hole there. Now, what I've done is I've gone back to the old ways and go back to people like Itosu, who's a karate master who wrote in 1908. He was clear that the kata, or the karate of that time, the karate of the katas, was designed for dealing with untrained people, criminals, in self-defense scenarios, not a fellow martial artist on a mat or in a ring. So I don't approach the kata as dealing with other karateka from long distance. I approach the kata as being for dealing with a violent but untrained person. And by untrained, I mean not versed in the same art as you at close range. So I tend to deal it for self-defense. And as a result of that, I include locking, throwing, choking, strangling, trapping, all of this kind of stuff that was part of old school karate, but is generally not practiced widely today. Although, things are changing.
Right. So you feel that you're sort of going back to how it was originally taught.
Yeah, in terms of intent,
Yeah.
yes. Because one thing the old masters were quite keen on is they were pragmatists. If somebody could show them a way to improve it, they improved it. If you look back at the classical generation, not one of the old masters passed it on exactly as it was taught to them. They all tried to kind of improve on it or blend together the different sources. So sometimes when people go going back to the roots, they're trying to do a martial arts, it's almost like preserved in amber. And
Right.
I think the irony is the old masters never did that, so I don't want to do that either.
Right.
So in terms of my overall approach is definitely an old school approach, but it's done in the modern world, in a modern way. We use modern training equipment and modern training methods and all that kind of stuff. So it's a modern old school version, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. That does make sense. I enjoy watching your videos, and one that I watched recently was titled 4 Stages of Kata.
Yes, yeah.
And I really like that because I think those 4 stages, they're not just great for karate practitioners, but I think for any traditional martial artist.
Yes, yeah.
If they're practicing forms. So could you elaborate on those 4 stages?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So this is having read a lot of the work, because if I have a talent, and this is down to the way that my brain works. So if somebody shows me lots of different bits of information, one of the first things I want to do is, okay, what's the essence of this? Because if I get the essence of it, I don't need to remember all the other extra bits of information. So I don't need to remember my times tables if I understand how to do multiplication. That's the kind of thing for me. So when I'm reading through the way that the old masters talked about how they related kata to fighting, I noticed the pattern. So my 4 stages is my attempt to draw together what all the various masters said. So this isn't what they said, but it encompasses all of what they said, if you see what I mean. So they expressed similar concepts in different ways. And you're right, it does apply to any combat art. So, but I'll go through the 4 stages, then we'll use boxing as an analogy, because I think that one resonates well with people. So the first stage is you learn the form, you learn the physical movement. Once you've learned the physical movement, what you then do is what we would call the bunkai. Is you say, okay, how is that physical movement supposed to be applied? What's its purpose? But the point of all things in the traditional forms is it's not, if it shows you a throw, it's not saying this is the only throw we ever want you to practice. It's saying here's a good example of the principles of throwing. We're supposed to get beyond the specific example to the principles. So those principles can be internalized and become habitual, so they can be freely applied. So that would be our third stage, is that we identify the underlying principles being displayed by the example in the form, so that we can vary it and adapt it and train lots of different ways of doing it. And then the final stage is it's all academic until we get live practice of it. So having learned my various throws through the form, I need to grab hold of a resisting partner and practice it live. So the 4 stages are you learn the form, you learn the applications, will be the second stage. The third stage is you identify the underlying principles so you can adapt and vary. And the 4th stage is you gain live experience of doing it. And I think if you've got all 4 of those running, because it's not like stage 2 supplants stage 1, you're doing all 4 of those all the time, but that would be the initial arc. If you're doing that, that's when it really starts to work. And we get past this notion that kata's dead, archaic, unchanging, not live. They are designed to be things that inform our live practice. They're not supposed to be an alternative to live practice. So if I went into a boxing gym, the first thing they'd say to me, okay, we're going to show you a jab. So stand in front of the mirror, stand like this, extend your left arm out and back like this. That's a 1-move kata. That's a solo form. Having learnt the jab, they'll then say, okay, right, this is what the jab is for. You can use it to set up stronger strikes. You can use it as a rangefinder. You can use it to keep the enemy back. So I'm learning there the applications. The next one is I learn the underlying principles so I can adapt and vary. So they'll then start telling me you can jab while moving backwards, you can jab while moving forwards, you can go clockwise, anti-clockwise, you can double jab, you can jab to the body, then the head then the body. You go through all the variations. You don't stick with the formal, here's one jab. And then finally, when I've done all that, they say, okay, now you've learned all this, we need to test that you've got it, and we need to give these principles and techniques free rein. So step into the ring and start firing your jab out at a guy who's going to try and avoid that jab, and we'll see how it works. So I think those 4 principles are inherent in learning any combat skill. In fact, I would argue pretty much any physical skill. But I found when I'm teaching to karateka, especially when there's this sometimes pre-existing idea that kata is something separate from live practice, these 4 stages really help kind of communicate the idea, I find.
Right.
Does that kind of cover all the bases there? Or is that
very much so. Yeah. I mean, that's very systematic, and I think that's very useful to anyone that's practicing forms that they may think are not applicable or they don't really feel like they're alive. That's a process they can go through and get value from what they're training, right?
Yeah, well, and then it really starts to live and breathe. Because one of the problems I sometimes have is when I talk to fellow martial artists, they'll go, "Oh, kata's pointless and it doesn't work." And I said, you know what? If I meant by kata what you mean by kata, I agree with you. But I see kata as it's not a thing. It's a process. So one of the things I try and do is I always use the word solo form when I'm talking about what most people think of kata. Right. Because that's just one element of it, one aspect of it. So, and once people have done it and they run through the process, they go, "Oh yeah, I get that. That's obvious." It's one of these. It's not, complicated to understand. People go, "That makes sense," and we do it all the time with every other technique. So we just apply it to the forms too, and then that's when it really starts to work for us, and we understand the wisdom of them. Then we understand how cleverly constructed forms are and how useful they can be to us.
Right. That's that's bringing it alive, bringing those things into action and making them come alive. And you often hear masters or whatever referring to forms as dead forms, right? So this is definitely a way to bring it to life.
Well, the way it should be, it's like a seed. I've used that analogy a lot. Like kata's like an acorn. So if you just leave that acorn as it is, then it may as well be dead. It's not doing what it's supposed to do. But if you apply the process, so you go, right, I'm going to plant the acorn. I'm not going to collect the acorns and polish acorns and tell you how many acorns I've got and how shiny they are. What I'm going to do is I'm going to plant it. I'm going to let it do what it's supposed to do. And when you do that and it starts to grow, that's when you say, okay, now it's fulfilling its purpose. So kata can be dead if you're using it in the wrong way. If you don't plant it, if you don't plant the seed, if you just keep it in its seed form and never understand what it's really supposed to do, then it may as well be dead. Yeah. But if you plant it and let it grow, that's when it starts to really kind of live and breathe.
So, given these 4 stages, obviously you've learned a lot of kata over the year. Do you have a personal favorite that employs applications or principles that you find particularly delectable or applicable or whatever you like?
And that they're 2 good words, because I do. But it's so my favorite one above all else is what most people would refer to as Naihanchi Shodan or Naihanchi Teki Shodan. That's the one I really like. And I also am a big fan of the Pinans because I think they're a nice summary of everything that went before. They're a nice summary of the Shurite line of karate, if we can use that terminology. So they would be my favorites. But it's not always, like for example, for Naihanchi, I love it because it's practical and it's functional, but I also love it because it's a small kata. So I can practice that in hotel rooms and stuff when I'm traveling. I bust my knee up a few years ago at the point where I couldn't pivot for a year. So Naihanchi doesn't have any pivots in it. So I always say that when I was injured, all the other katas abandoned me, but Naihanchi stood by me. so I have an attachment to that one that's not purely pragmatic. It's also a bit romantic, a bit emotional as well, you see. So, so delectable would be a good word, but I do find it particularly effective. But all the forms, when they're correctly analysed, are particularly effective. But for that one, I have an attachment to for reasons as well as practical. There's some reasons above and beyond that as well.
Right, I see. Okay, so I've heard you talking about making karate relevant today by teaching it as it was originally taught. So obviously we've talked about that here, but what do you think the most relevant skills are today in terms of self-defense? Are they the same as they've always been, or do you think there's some that are particularly relevant today that people should be focusing on?
No, well, the one thing is that a big part that's in one. This I think we what martial arts are often bad at is just distinguishing between different types of conflict and violence. So for certain ones, like, you know, if well, we can paint. Well, am I painting a beautiful landscape in watercolors, or am I painting my living room ceiling? Depending on, both are painting, but you know, one, I've got a different set of tools for one than I have for the other, and if I mix them up, it's not going to work well. So sometimes people see things like, they'll see like the evolution of MMA, for example. So over the last 20 years, we've seen that combat sport radically shift in the way that it does things. So martial artists think, oh, fighting has radically changed. Well, that particular way of fighting within that rule set may well have radically changed and altered. But when it comes to like physical self-defense, a big part of it is based on emotion and aggression and way our hormones work, our nervous system works, the way our brain works under stress, and that hasn't changed recently. You know, that will take thousands and thousands of years to shift. So when two human beings or two more human beings have an exchange in that very primal way, it's largely the same. And that's what Kata's dealt for dealing with. The couple of things that do change is obviously the technology of weapons changes. So you won't find handgun defenses in Kata because, well, no one had handguns back then. You know, you will find things that are relevant to, you know, knives and sticks and all that kind of stuff, but you won't find that. And the other thing that can shift is fashions can shift. So there's techniques in Kata that rely on like grabbing the top knot, for example. Now, for years that wasn't fashionable, but thanks to the hipsters, it's coming back. so if that stays, Kata's getting more relevant again, you know. But but I think in terms of the reality of it, that hasn't altered because that's largely determined by our biology more than anything else. And I think the one thing that Kata is good for dealing with when it's approached correctly is the chaos of it. I think that people need to get the close range, speedy, the chaos. Chaos is the best word. And I always tell my students they need to embrace the chaos. Some people want to try and impose order on it. No, punch slower or punch like this, and then my thing will work. But what you're going to have coming at you is an explosive mass of limbs. They don't want a consensual, skilled exchange. It's an explosive, very aggressive, very chaotic mess. And if we understand that chaos and are not freaked out by it and are able to work within it, that's when I think we become pretty effective in that environment. But it'd be different again. You know, that skill set wouldn't be the right skill set for outfighting a skilled martial artist. That's a far more cerebral game than this. So it's a matter, I think, of using the right tool for the right job, and then not value judging either. It's all good. I like learning all of it, but we just need to make sure we're using the right tool for the right job and not trying to apply consensual fighting methods to non-consensual violence because they don't survive that crossover. Right,
and that leads on to my next question, which is, I've heard you mention that karate is for a non-consensual fight, historically. So could you help us understand the context of that a little bit better? For example, how you think it was originally developed and for what reason? What was going to be the outcome of using it?
Well, I mean, I think the best line for that is so in 1908 there was one hugely influential karate master called Anko Itosu. He was the guy who spearheaded getting it into schools and teaching as a form of exercise and stuff. So a hugely influential guy in the history of karate. And in 1908 he wrote his letter, which is largely known as his 10 precepts, to explain, look, this is what karate is, these are its benefits. And one of the things that he mentions in there, it's the second line of the first precept, where he said, karate is not intended to be used against a single adversary. It is a method of avoiding injury by using the hands and feet should one by chance be confronted by a villain or ruffian. So that's a translation that I paid to get done off the original handwritten text by a person that wasn't a martial artist.
Right.
So what it says there is it's not for fighting a single adversary. So it's not for a consensual duel.
Right.
You know, for two people stand up and agree to fight one another in order to prove who's the best fighter. He said it's a method of avoiding injury. So not necessarily winning, just making sure you don't get hurt. And then he goes, if by chance one is confronted by a villain or ruffian. So what he's saying is karate is not for a consensual square go with another skilled martial artist. It's for keeping yourself safe from the criminal element. So it's not for fighting, it's for self-defense. And there's all kinds of things to unpack there, because sometimes martial artists have an arrogance about that, where they'll say, well, I'm trained, and if that criminal isn't trained, then obviously he's nothing to me, I'll defeat him with ease. But for fundamentally failing to get what the criminal's objective there is, because he doesn't want to fight, he just wants to harm you and take things off you. So if you go into that with a fighting mindset, you'll find that, to use one of my teacher's phrases, you'll find that you're sitting down to play chess where they're going to play drafts. Right. You know what I mean? You're playing an entirely different game, so you're not going to win because they're playing a different game, and they know they're playing a different game. So to me, the way I divide it up these days, and people tend to get it pretty well, is we've got consensual violence, which is when two people, I say, I agree to fight you. Everyone involved agrees for that to happen. So that could be sport and martial arts or street fight, hate that term, but, that kind of thing. But, which is illegal and stupid and shouldn't be used as a synonym for self-defense. But so you've got that, people agree to do it. And then you've got non-consensual violence, where it's, I do not consent to this. This person wants to harm me and hurt me, but I don't want anything to do with it. So your objectives are different, and therefore the dynamics of the situation are different. So the old school karate of the kata is designed for non-consensual violence against criminals. And on top of that, in the modern age, we've layered for fighting each other's skills on top of that. But it's important to keep them different. Otherwise, the analogy I use at seminars is it's like trying to knock a nail in with a paintbrush. It's not that there's anything wrong with the paintbrush. It's perfect for what it's designed for, but you're using it for the wrong thing. So we just need to be mindful of, as Sun Tzu said, know your enemy and know yourself, and you'll never know defeat. So who's your enemy? What are their objectives? And what skill sets have you got that can apply to that enemy? Don't approach it, one size fits all kind of way, which sadly I think is probably the biggest problem in modern martial arts when it comes to self-defense, this insidious assumption that criminals behave just like they do.
Right. Yeah, and that they're going to be fair or...
Well, that's, and I lost count the amount of times I see self-defense techniques in books and magazines that start with the guys standing away from each other, 10 feet apart, with the guards up.
Right.
That's not it. That's not it. And then they approach it like gameplay, and then use all kind of like intellectual gymnastics to try and get out of the fact that it's obviously problematic. So if I was having a one-on-one fight, taking a guy at the ground and putting on an ankle lock would be a perfectly fine way to win. If I'm doing that in self-defense, where there can be more than one person, I can get stamped flat, while I'm doing that. Because while I'm tied up with one person, I'm totally vulnerable to others. So there's those kind of things where we just need to be mindful that the objectives have changed. And we can train for all of it and we can enjoy all of it, but we just need to make sure that we're using the right tool for the right job.
Right. Okay. A couple of more questions I'd like to ask you. Actually, I've got a lot of questions, but I'm going to keep it to two before we jump into to questions for the listeners. So I saw a really great video of you sort of bringing traditional karate movements alive on the pads. I don't know the techniques in the karate kind of terminology, but it looked like a reverse punch and then stepping forward. You were punching continually with the right hand.
I know exactly what you really mean. Yes,
right.
I do know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
Really enjoyed seeing that traditional movement kind of come alive. So a couple of questions is, how did you develop that training method, and what do you feel the advantages of it are for any other traditional kind of martial artist or anyone listening? Maybe you could explain it as well. I mean, I don't think I did a particularly good job of explaining it.
To me you did. I know exactly which drill you mean, so I can gladly talk that through. So, there's a couple of things with this. This goes back to this idea of modern versus old school. So in old school karate, they didn't have focus mitts. They didn't have this, the mitts we put our hands on that the partner can hit. So they're not part of traditional, in air quotes, karate. However, I'm sure that if I went back in time and said to the old masters, here, I've got these things called focus mitts, they would have used them gladly because they would have saw the utility of them. So for me, that was the point. Your focus mitts are that you can hit at different angles, you can hit as you're moving, you can have your partner retreating or moving away from you. And in the video that you're referring to, it's basically a drill designed to get them going from punches to kicks and back. That's what it does. So on one of them, it kicks and does a reverse punch, which steps into a kick, and then a lunging punch, which steps into a kick, and then what would now probably be called a Superman punch, a hopping punch. So we have a step, a slide, and a hop, effectively, all built into one drill. So the reason that I like doing that kind of stuff on the pads is it's measurable. So people normally they'll look at a technique and say whether it's good or bad. Well, that's arbitrary. If you put when it comes to impact, you stick it on the pads, you can hear whether it's good or bad. You can feel whether it's good or bad. So that's the wonderful thing about pads is that they're a fair test of how much power there is in the technique. So I'd used focus mitts for a long, long time. And then when I started training with Peter Considine, who's a 9th Dan, I mean, Peter's striking power and way of moving has been a huge influence on me. He had a lot of pad drills. And does have, it's coming up with new drills every single week. And those drills tend to be more like in a more modern karate, if you like, almost like a kickboxing style element. Well, I took those concepts and then I applied that to the traditional karate stuff. So we include the headbutting, the kneeing, the elbows, the throwing, all that kind of stuff as well. So why I think it's a great way of practice is you actually get to hit something. And it's and that's, again, very important. Self-defense wise, your ability to generate impact is number one. The other one with it as well is it's just a really enjoyable form of training. People like hitting things. It can be quite cathartic. If you've had a bit of a tough day, one of my friends calls it impact therapy. He says he loves it. Always feels totally different man. And there's this, what I refer to as this repetition by stealth element as well, which is a phrase of one of my other teachers. That when people are on the pads, that they're just getting engrossed in it so much that they don't realise the amount of repetitions that they're doing. So it's a good way to get lots of methods practiced like that. So it's a modern way of training, but I think it helps us achieve the objectives a lot better than standing in front of a wooden post with straw wrapped around it doing single shots. So.
Right. Okay, so the last karate question that I'm going to specifically ask you now, before we go into questions for more addressed to listeners, and just to let you know, I do have a lot more, but I'm conscious of your time. So, what do you think really great karate looks like in your mind? And could you paint the picture for that of that for us? Well, there's two words that immediately jump to mind: is functional and elegant. Because. Again, I think it takes us right back full circle, really. But you've got, when it comes to what it should look like, the aesthetics of it, what a lot of karateka do is they go, I have a preconceived idea of what I think good karate should look like. And I want it to look like this just because. Now, if you can point out, well, that way of moving may achieve that given aesthetic, but it's not functional. You'll get a lot of karateka go, I don't care. Master X said this is the way to do it. It looks like Master X when I do it this way. That's why I'm doing it this way. I think if we flip it the other way around and say, well, what we're going to seek is function. Because if you seek that function, it develops a very lean, beautiful aesthetic all of its own. So to me, it needs to have that kind of succinctness, that directness, that elegance to movement, not based on some arbitrary aesthetic, but based on function. Because function will lead to a nice aesthetic, but nice aesthetics doesn't always lead to function. Right. So I love it when I see my students just it's graceful, it's explosive, it's dynamic, and I can get wrapped up in the art of it. I can look at it and go, wow, that looks so good, so nice to watch them move like that. Forgetting that that if they did that to a person, it would look anything but good. Right. It would look horrific. You know what I mean? Yeah. But when it's done on the pads, there's a joy in watching the human body move in that efficient way, I think. Mm-hmm. So it should be functional, but not ugly. It should be functional and have a nice aesthetic to it too, which I think will naturally flow from the function. Now, when you apply it, it'll get a bit rough and ready, but that's a different kind of aesthetic.
But certainly when you're banging pads and engaged in drills and all that kind of stuff, that function, I think, is what leads to the form.
Okay. So for listeners now, I'm just going to ask a few more kind of targeted questions that perhaps it could benefit them. Now, I know that you recently wrote a book or authored a book on sort of mental performance. I forget the title of the book, but it looks
Mental Strength is
Mental
the name
Strength.
of the book.
Yeah. And I've heard you talk about how sort of seeking discomfort can lead to growth. So could you elaborate a little bit on that idea for listeners, and perhaps that's something they could benefit from?
Well, this is something. It's one of the. Everybody knows this. That was one of the bits of feedback I got from the book. Is everyone went, "Yep, I wouldn't have maybe worded it that way, but you just reminded me of things I already knew." But it can be worth reminding people of this. I need reminded of this because it's one of these universal truths, really. Let's say there's two kinds of discomfort. There's the discomfort which just harms, that serves no valid purpose. We've got to avoid that, almost like a catabolic discomfort. But there's also that anabolic discomfort, that one that we will grow from, and we're not always good at distinguishing between the two. So for example, if I went to a dangerous place and people pulled knives and attacked me and I got scared and run away, I shouldn't go, I should really face my fears and go back to that place.
Right.
That fear is entirely legitimate. It's trying to keep me alive. It's saying, don't do the dumb thing, Ian. So that fear, that discomfort is one that we acknowledge, that's valid. I need to listen to that. Or if I'm exercising and I start to get a sharp pain somewhere, I need to listen to that discomfort because it's trying to help me. But there's other discomfort that you're better just pushing through. So if I'm in the gym and I'm working out and I'm starting to feel a little bit short of breath and there's a part of me, just quit. Yeah, you've done enough. If I'm able to push through that discomfort, that little bit, then I'll get fitter and I'll get stronger and I'll get healthier. So being in that discomfort can be beneficial. The first time I walked into the karate dojo, as I mentioned, I was scared, and I was scared for a long time. Now, if I'd listened to that fear and went, I'm not coming back here, I wouldn't be doing the things I'm doing now. So there's sometimes we just need to accept that this is going to be uncomfortable. But the only way for that discomfort to disappear is to keep exposing myself to it, because it does disappear over time. So sometimes I think people run from fear and run from discomfort because there are some fears and some discomforts we should run from. But there's others that we need to say, no, I need to endure this and accept that there's nothing wrong with me for feeling scared and there's nothing wrong with feeling out of my depth. That's a part of progress. And if I stick with this for long enough, I won't feel scared anymore and I won't feel out of my depth. And then I'm ready to take the next step as well. It's beautifully summed up. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Three Kings. It's Mark Wahlberg and I think Ice-T and
it's good. It's a good movie.
It is, yeah. I like the George Clooney as well. Well, so it's called Three Kings, and there's this bit when four of them go on a mission. So it's like Star Trek with the guy in the red jersey. This fourth guy's not going to make it. But before he goes, he says to George Clooney's character, "I'm really scared." And he says, what you need to do is you do the thing and then you won't be scared of it. And he goes, well, that's dumb. It should be the other way around. I should feel not scared, then I can do it. And he says, yeah, well, it is dumb, but that's the way it is. It's a throwaway line in the movie, but I thought that's exactly right. Fear doesn't go away until you marinate in it, and then it disappears. So that was the point of the book, really, just giving all the various examples. And again, I've used the analogy of weightlifting quite a lot in the book, which is the strength thing. If I've got my weights rack next door, if I walk in there and put every single weight I've got on it and try and bench press it, I'll just rip myself to pieces. So I've exposed myself to too much stress and too much discomfort. But a measured amount, like 5% over what I'm comfortable with, you do that for a few weeks and I can do this no problem now. So now it's another 5%. Then it's just taking those incremental steps and being aware there's a process and being aware that discomfort and failure and feeling out of your depth and feeling confused are all part of progress. So if that's happening, if you're feeling those things, it's not a bad thing. It's not failing on anyone else's part. It means that you're doing something special. You're doing something that will lead to growth.
How do you recommend people identify the fears that are holding them back and that should be perhaps faced?
Yeah. Well, I think to me the best thing to do is just keep asking why.
Right.
So for example, I'm about to leap off this building onto this metal spike.
Yeah.
I'm scared. Why do I want to? Well, if I did that, I'd die. Okay,
Yeah.
that's a valid theory. Don't do that. That's a dumb thing to do.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? But in other cases, it's you follow it through. And like for example, when I quit my full-time job to do this full-time, that was associated with a lot of fear. So you go, well, why am I scared of doing this? Well, it might not work out, and you might end up with no money. Well, what'll happen then? Well, you'll get another job, right? Okay, so what? Other people might laugh at you and say, "Look what you did, you idiot! You threw away years of your career." And yeah, so what? People laugh at me. That's nothing.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then you kind of weigh out saying, if I face this fear, it's not really justifiable. It's not going to result in any great harm or death. There are risks involved, but ultimately there's benefits as well. For the other ones, you go, there are severe risks involved here, and there are no benefits. But I think people know. If I know I do, and I'll do it to myself to this day. There'll be things where I'll find justifications in my own mind, but there's part of me that knows the justifications. I'm just, I'm not doing what I should do. And it's okay to take a rest every now and again. And it's okay to say not now, and it's okay but at some point, if people want to make progress, you've got to, right, okay, this is uncomfortable and it is difficult, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Right. Okay. You have been around many, many top-level martial artists. So is there one mental or emotional trait that you see consistently in these top-level guys, including yourself? And what trait, what trait if there is a trait, what trait do you see consistently and that might be worthy of development for anybody that's listening?
Yeah, well, I think all the martial artists that I know at high levels they're all very different individuals. So there's certain things that that others have got, but the two things which do go together, I think, is the first thing is they have a high need for achievement. You know what I mean? So it's not enough to I'm an average black belt. They want to be the best they can be, and are very clear on what that objective is. So that's the first. They have a high need for achievement, and the second thing is they have a low fear of failure. You know what I mean? So they're prepared to risk it, and if it all goes wrong, you know what I mean? Just laugh it off, pick myself up, and go again. So I would, and I think that's probably true of anyone who wants to achieve anything. You've got, I want this, and I really want this. I'll put it with the discomfort. I'll put it with the hard work. I'll put in the hours. I'll put in the graft. Because it's something they love. So it's not too much of a chore. You know what I mean? It's like I love this, and I'll put up with all the stuff that comes with it. And I'll try it, and I'm not scared to make a fool of myself, and I'm not scared to mess up, and I'm not scared for people to say that's rubbish or useless or I don't like it. You know what I mean? But I'll do it. I'll high need for achievement and low fear of failure. I think if you've got those two things, or you strive to have those two things, you become very difficult to stop.
Okay. Last question aimed for listeners. How can traditional martial artists benefit from a more modern approach to training, and how might modern martial artists, for example, mixed martial arts guys, benefit from a more traditional approach?
But I think there's definitions within there, because what some people would call traditional, others will call modern, you see. I think the one thing that, a few things that what people like me can benefit from, traditional artists like me, is looking at things like MMA. MMA is not dogmatic. If something's proven to have value, they'll adopt it wholesale. They measure everything by effect. I think these are kind of valuable things. It's not preserved in amber, MMA. It's a living, breathing thing. Nobody in MMA at the moment is saying things like, well, this is not how they did it 20 years ago, so we'll do it this way. This is not how O-Sensei did it. None of them are doing that. They're saying this is proven to be working at the minute, therefore this is what we're going to do. So I think that's one of the benefits I think that traditional martial artists could benefit from, being a bit more open, a bit more pragmatic, letting the tree grow, as I mentioned before. And on the other way around, I think one of the things that traditional martial arts have, it's a lifelong thing. So, children can do it for discipline and enjoyment. Teenagers can compete and they get the excitement of that, and they get to prove themselves to themselves and their peers. 30-somethings, 40-somethings get, they've got families and jobs, and they get the self-defense side of it, to protect what they've got. as we get older, it keeps us moving, it keeps us physically healthy. You know, there's value to all the way through. Whereas I think in MMA, what we tend to see is you get a lot of 20-something males beating the living daylights out of each other. Well, that's only going to last so long, yeah. And then again, and again, I've been there. I did that, and I thought my body would last that way forever. And now I'm in my mid-40s, my body just, certain things goes, no, you're not doing that. You know, I don't care how much you want to do it, it's not happening.
Right.
So in order for that longevity, I think that, I also think MMA is, it's a little bit like, it's not far off being, it's a teenage martial art in terms of how long it's been going, really, in its modern form. And I think sometimes it behaves a little bit like a teenager. I'm not saying the individuals within it do, I'm saying the art does. In terms of, I know everything. Everything that's gone before is useless. I'm here now. I get how the world should work. Right. You know, and then you get the older one saying, you know what I mean? You're missing the big picture, really. And I think sometimes there's benefit in the fact that the traditional martial arts have been around for a while. So they can learn some of our values and ethos and avoid making some of the mistakes that we made. So I see that happening now, you know, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, black belts who've never actually sparred live, and you can get black belts from, you know, online courses and all the stuff that traditional martial arts had to suffer and endure. I can see it starting to appear in them as well. So they could learn from our mistakes as well, I think.
Okay. Okay, and I'm going to ask you some bonus questions. As I mentioned, these they're meant to happen a little bit quicker. Most of the time, doesn't really happen. So, but they're just fun. So I'm gonna fling a few of those your way, and we'll see how we get on. So, can you tell me something that's true for you that almost nobody agrees with you on?
That almost nobody agrees with me on. That's true.
Almost nobody agrees with you on.
That's difficult because I spend most of my life arguing with people to convince them I'm right. The one that's jumping to mind was a little bit trite that Marmite is the world's most delicious food. I certainly believe that.
Certainly,
but I know there's a great swathe of people that don't. You know, I love the stuff. I'd have it as, you know, it was once asked what my last meal would be, and it would be Marmite on toast. You know, That's one that hardly anyone ever agrees with me on. You know?
With loads of butter.
Yeah, well, that's of course, that's it, you know. And then, so yeah, that's one. Another one. I think the food things. I love root beer as well. I know most Brits don't. They find it revolting, which is why you can't buy it here. Yeah. But I really do like root beer. So there's a couple of food-based ones.
So anybody who's not from the UK, you can probably order Marmite online, and if you do, you'll discover that either you hate it or you love it. That's pretty much how it goes, right?
It is, and it's an interesting fact. It's illegal in Denmark.
You're kidding me. Really?
No, it's true. The B vitamin concentration is too high for their food laws there.
Wow.
So yeah. So any food stuff that's banned in a European country, you've got to want to try that, right?
Exactly. Okay. What is your favourite quote, or one of many?
Horace's. A man's character is his fate.
Wow, that is a good one.
Yeah, I love that one because to me, what it sums up is that invariably your character will determine your actions, your thoughts, and that will determine how your life's going to end up. So it works for me in two ways. The first thing is what I need to concentrate on is being as good and as productive and as likable and as helpful a human being as I can be, and that will benefit me as well as those around me. It also reminds me that those people in life, and we've all got them, that are difficult, awkward, hate-filled, horrible people, I don't need to worry about them because their own characters will sort them out. You know, so that's why I like that one.
Oh, yeah, and that's a good one. Let's hear that again.
So the quote is, a man's character is his fate. It's Horace that said it.
Wow, that's very succinct. A favourite movie, documentary or book that might be useful to anyone?
Oh, right. So favourite movie. I love Dirty Harry. Watched that film when I was a kid. It's something that I always, every time that's on, I've got to watch it again. So that's one I really enjoy. A comedic movie that I absolutely love that is called What We Do in the Shadows. It's a New Zealand-made film about 4 vampires sharing a flat. It's the funniest thing I've ever watched.
Okay, excellent.
So there's one if people haven't got it. You know.
Yeah, that sounds like a good indie film, yeah?
Yeah, but it's just so funny. I've stumbled across it on Netflix, and I was supposed to be going to bed early, and I just lay there rolling around laughing. If everyone needed cheering up, I'd find the DVD, throw that DVD on, laugh from start to finish. So I love that thing. It's just so beautifully ridiculous. It's really, really good.
Very
so,
good.
So lots of. Obviously, I'm looking at my bookshelf. I've got thousands of books, so there's no favourite one I could recommend.
Okay.
I love reading, but there's a couple of movies I'd recommend anyway.
How about a documentary?
I'm just trying to think of ones I've watched recently. I can't remember the title of it, but I do watch a lot of documentaries. But one I found particularly moving recently, and I'm sorry that I can't remember the title, but you know the TV series Spartacus. You know, there was a TV series, and I don't know if you know, it's very like violent, graphic series. But the guy who played the lead in the first series developed cancer.
Right.
And therefore they had to stop filming while they got. Hopefully they hoped he was going to get better, but he didn't. Well, there's a documentary about him right from the start of him discovering he got cancer, right through to his death.
Wow.
And that was it was a very moving thing, because you see this journey with him where he feels, you know, that he's getting better. He retains his positivity throughout, but it just doesn't work out the way that he's planned. And if people don't want to know how it ends, then But
check it out.
Really got me. I thought was really emotional. Was in his final thing on the thing before he died, he was saying, "I just know everything will be okay." He said, "I know my wife will be okay, and I know my kids will be okay." And I can feel myself starting to fill up. You know, it's really moving.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to the end of the documentary where they see his family, and a year later, and you know they're obviously missing Dad, but they're okay. You know what I mean? So that was one I found particularly moving. Yeah. And it's a nice reminder that, you know, we get these trials and tribulations, but on a long enough time arc, everything ends up being okay. You know what I mean? No matter how tragic and horrific, we just got to keep on getting through it. But I can't remember the name of the documentary, but I watched that one recently and was really taken with it. Really did enjoy it.
But we should be able, if people want to watch it, they should be able to search Spartacus and find the actor, and then they... Google, guys. Google, everybody.
That's right. But well worth watching. You know, it's a sad one, but I always liked tales of, you know, people battling the odds. And what I liked about this one was it wasn't a happy ending. It wasn't like, and I did this and I got cured and we lived happily ever after. But I think sometimes that's what makes it all the more beautiful and all the more poignant. You know, I think so. Yeah, that's well worth checking out.
And that's life as well, isn't it? It's not always
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, final question for you, Iain. Final question. 3 people, living or dead, you can choose and have them to dinner. Who would you choose? And they can be anybody, living or dead. 3 of them round to dinner or down the pub. You know, I interviewed Steve Maxwell the other week, and he said, "Well, I don't really do dinner with people." I said, "Okay, grappling match then. You could grapple anyone." Living or dead. So up to you what the situation is. But who would you choose and where would you go?
Yeah, karate-wise, I'd have to be Anko Itosu. Just because I'd love to say him, you know, this little Okinawan art you practice is now a worldwide phenomenon. So what you did changed the planet, you know what I mean, to some small way. So, but I'd want him to see, look, this is how karate is now, and what do you think about it? What do you like? What do you not like? I'd love to get his views on how his experiment turned out, I think, you know, so that would be one. In terms of other people I'd like to talk to, the comedian Louis C.K., American comedian, I just find hilarious. So I'd love to be able to kind of just chat with him. I just find him really funny, you know, he just always amuses me. And one guy I always love listening to talk is Neil deGrasse Tyson, you know, the physicist. Just the way he talks and the way he explains physics and this wonderful universe which we inhabit always amazes me. So he's one I would love to be able to sit and, you know, okay, go over that again. Explain that to me again.
And again and again and again, please.
Until I've got it. So I think that would be. So I've got my little bit of martial history there, and I've got some good humour, and I've hopefully learned something too. So that would be a fun day down the pub, I think.
Perfect. Iain, it's been an absolute pleasure to chat with you and to learn a lot from you. In all honesty, so I really, really thank you for your time.
Oh, my pleasure. I enjoyed that a lot. Thank you very much.
Hey guys and girls, before you go, I want to tell you about the Mindfulness for Modern Life bundle I've created for you. You can get this for free when you sign up for updates at warriorstrategy.com. Now in this bundle you're going to get an 8 Tai Chi Chuan Performance Enhancers PDF, a powerful Qigong video and a mindfulness audio track. So what are you waiting for? Head on over to warriorstrategy.com. Hey, this is Robin Gamble, thanking you for listening, hoping you enjoyed the content and kindly asking you to share with your friends if you did. Thanks again and see you next time.